My husband has known me for 51 years. He knows me on Tuesdays, in a room with a nurse in it. He does not know me in the hallway. I have tested this 11 times. My name is Ruth Ellery, 73. 51 years married. A number I say out loud because saying it is different from having it. For 31 of those years, I kept the books for his firm. So you understand what I did when this started. I wrote it down. Tuesdays since the spring he went in. 10 o'clock, when the corridor is quiet. He does the crossword in pen. It used to make me furious. 6 years of Tuesdays. You would think I'd have noticed sooner. The first time was a Thursday. That is the only reason I caught it. Marguerite, the aide on that corridor, stayed to open the blinds. He looked up. Ruth? The whole thing. My name, the complaint about the light, the gutters. I had not had the gutters seen to. Marguerite laughed and went out. In the 8 seconds the door took to close, my husband looked at me with perfect courtesy and asked whether I was here about the room. I said his name. He said he didn't want to be rude. He said he was expecting his wife. Then Marguerite came back for the blind cord. Before her hand was off the door, he said, "Ruthie, tell her about the gutters." He did not recover. There was no gap, no crossing, no moment where he found me again. It was more like a lamp. I rang his medical group on the Friday. I got as far as his memory coming and going. The woman said sundowning before I finished. I did not tell her the rest. Sundowning is a thing that happens to him. What I was about to describe is a thing that happens to me. So I did it privately. A notebook. Green cover. Times in the left margin. 10:04. Knows me. Marguerite present. 10:31. Does not. Alone. The pattern was not medical. Medical patterns drift. Mine had a doorway. I asked Marguerite to step out for water and counted. 11 seconds. I am not proud of the testing. Nobody warns you how polite it is. He was a well-mannered stranger, being handed my life and reciting it back to me. I brought the small ones on the 4th Tuesday. The big one on the bureau does not travel. He picked up the wedding one. That's a good day. Relief went through me so fast I had to sit down. Then he turned it toward me, the way you show a stranger something. That's my wife. She has a laugh you can hear from the car park. I have never had a laugh like that. I said so. He gave me the concern you give someone who has said something odd. Then Marguerite came in with his tablets, and he said, "Ruthie, you're sitting on your coat." I was sitting on my coat. That was the day I stopped thinking of it as an illness. An illness takes things from the person who has it. I asked for a meeting. The administrator was kind. They are trained to be kind. I asked her one thing. Had he ever, in 6 years, spoken about me to staff when I was not here? She scrolled for a long time. There's a great deal here about his wife. I said, yes. I'm not finding a name. I drove home the long way. I did not want to arrive yet. That night, I put the wedding photograph on the kitchen table. Me in my mother's veil, too long, which I complained about all morning. I know that I complained. I know it the way you know a thing you have told for years. What I could not do, with the picture in front of me, was hear my mother's voice telling me to leave it alone. I could see her saying it. I could not hear it. I wrote the time in the notebook, because that is what I do. 11:40. Cannot hear mother. It did not occur to me to ask what I had done that day to lose it. Nobody made me go and collect witnesses. I want that established before I tell you what it cost. It started with Marguerite, because Marguerite was already there. I asked whether she'd mind sitting a minute while I talked to him. She thought I meant company. I meant stay in the frame. It worked. 40 minutes of my husband, the gutters, the bakery flat, the dog that bit the postman twice. That night, I made a list of everyone who could be asked. His sister, our solicitor, a woman from the choir who had been at the wedding. You have to understand that this felt like housekeeping, like getting the accounts in order before an audit. His sister came in March. She sat with him 2 hours, and he was magnificent. He told the story about the boat. He got the year right, which I had got wrong for 2 decades. Afterwards, in the car park, she held both my hands. "He's still in there, Ruthie." I said I knew. She said, "Do you remember him going over? Because you screamed. You screamed and you went in after him with your shoes on." And I laughed, because it was true, because I had been telling that story at dinner parties for 40 years. And while I was laughing, I reached for it. The cold of the water, the weight of the coat, the specific idiot feeling of going in wearing shoes. Nothing. I stood in a car park holding a woman's hands and listened to her give me back a thing I had just that second stopped owning. I thought it was grief. Grief takes your appetite, your sleep, your sense of time. Why not this? I had an explanation, so I stopped looking for a rule. I kept going. The solicitor confirmed the date of the deed. That night I could not find the afternoon we signed it. The choir woman described my dress down to the buttons. By Thursday, I could not find the fitting. Every trade the same shape. Somebody said a true thing about my marriage out loud, and within a day the version in me went thin, then transparent, then gone. And what was left was their sentence in their voice. I wrote each one in the notebook. Date acquired, date lost. I have 31 years of practice at noticing when a column does not balance. I noticed. I kept going anyway. That is the part I would explain differently now. By April, I had a theory, and I was proud of it. The marriage needed witnesses to survive. Each testimony was a stitch. Gather enough, and the fabric holds. So of course it cost. Everything worth keeping costs. Then I asked Marguerite to describe the first time she ever saw me. She said, "In the room, with him, sitting where you always sit." I asked what year. She said she couldn't say. She said it felt like she had always known me. I asked when I started coming, and Marguerite, who is a serious woman, who does not fill silences to be kind, went quiet and looked at the door. Then she said, "I suppose I've never seen you arrive." 6 years of Tuesdays. Nobody had ever seen me arrive. I asked at the desk for the visitor book. 6 years of Tuesdays, initialed in and out. The book showed me signing in, every Tuesday. My handwriting, deteriorating slowly across 6 years the way handwriting does. Not one signature going out. I turned the pages back and said it out loud without meaning to. Then when do I leave? The girl at the desk laughed. People laugh when they don't know what else to do. You leave, love. I've watched you walk out. He was doing the crossword. Pen, half filled. His handwriting, which I have signed letters beside for 51 years. Marguerite was in the doorway with the linen cart. He said, without looking up, Ruthie, 7 letters. A woman who waits. I said I didn't know. He said, Neither do I. I've been sat on it all morning. And Marguerite pushed the cart on down the corridor. I made myself watch this time. His shoulders did not change. His face did not empty. No fog, no searching, no apology. He finished the word he was writing. Then he looked up at a woman he had never met and asked, very kindly, whether the tea trolley had been round. An illness varies. Any illness. A brain failing does it differently every time. I drove home and sat outside my own house with the engine off. And I looked up, because something about the roof line was wrong. The gutters were clear, swept, and the bracket on the corner replaced, and a run of moss taken off the slates above them. I have lived in that house for 44 years. I did not arrange it. I would remember arranging it, because arranging things is the only part of this I have been any good at. I sat there a long time, working out how to make it mean something ordinary. I got it the wrong way round. I want to be honest about that. I decided somebody had done me a kindness. I did not once consider that somebody had done them. If the marriage only exists where somebody can see it, give it something that never stops seeing. The shop sold me a camera the size of a bar of soap. I put it on the shelf above his television, behind the carriage clock, angled down. I told myself it was for the doctors. That was a lie, and I knew it while I was telling it. It was so that something in that room would be watching when I was the only person in it. I have noticed this about myself. The worse the thing I am doing, the calmer I get. The first Tuesday I changed nothing. That night I watched 40 minutes of a marriage on a laptop in my kitchen. The gutters, the crossword, the argument about the clock. So ordinary I had to stop it twice. The second Tuesday I asked Marguerite to leave. She said, "Of course, love," and the door did the slow thing hydraulic doors do. 11 seconds. I had counted it so many times I did not need to count it. He looked up and said, "Ruthie, you've had your hair done." I had had my hair done. I sat there alone with my husband, and he knew me. Relief is what you feel when a bad thing stops. This was the other one, where you have held something above water for months and somebody takes the weight. We talked for an hour. Nobody came in. It worked. I want that on the record, because of everything that comes after. That night, I watched it back, because I wanted to see myself being known. The room came up, the window, the clock slightly in shot. Him in the chair, the paper folded on his knee. He looked up. He said, "Ruthie, you've had your hair done." He smiled, and waited, and listened, and answered. For 1 hour, with his whole face, in exactly the places I remembered. To nobody. There was no one in the chair. I watched it 4 times. The 4th time, I stopped looking at him and looked at the chair. It is not empty the way an empty chair is empty. The cushion is compressed. The light on the wall behind it is interrupted. and once he reaches out, and his hand stops at exactly the height of a hand being held. I thought it meant... No. I keep trying to make it mean he was seeing a different woman. I took the card to the desk the next morning and asked the girl to look. I did not tell her what to look for. She watched a minute and smiled and said, "Oh, that's lovely. He's so much better with you there." I said, "Where?" She pointed at the empty chair with the compressed cushion. "There. That's you. You're wearing the blue." I was wearing the blue. She had been down the corridor with a trolley while it happened. That was enough. That was apparently all it has ever taken. I went home and did the only useful thing I have done in 6 months. I sat at the kitchen table with the notebook, and I ruled 2 columns, the way I would have for a set of accounts. On the left, everything I know about my marriage. On the right, where I got it. 41 entries. The wedding, from a photograph. The boat, from his sister, in a car park in March. The deed, from a letter with a stamp on it. Our first flat, the smell of the bakery at 4 in the morning. From him, in a room, with a physiotherapist in the doorway. I worked at it until 2 in the morning, and I was thorough, because thorough is the one thing I have. The left column filled. The right column filled. And there is no third column. There is nowhere to put a thing I simply know. I sat and looked at that page for a long time. Then I turned it over and started a new one, and at the top I wrote a question. And I did not answer it that night. Who cleared the gutters? I went in on a Tuesday and asked for it in writing. A letter with a name at the bottom, confirming he was a resident and I was his wife. The administrator was gone 11 minutes. I counted, which is what I do now instead of waiting. She said he was discharged in 2019. I said that was not possible. I am here every Tuesday. She turned the screen a little way toward me, which they are told not to do, and I think she did it because she had begun to be frightened. I said, "Discharged where?" She read it off the screen, in the voice people use for reading. To the care of his wife. 6 years. He has been at home for 6 years. I want to tell you, I did not believe her. I have no way to not believe her. I gave away every part of my marriage that could have argued with a screen. I asked to see the room. The bed was made. The window opened 2 inches, the way he liked it. The paper was folded on the arm of the chair, the crossword half done, in pen. I said, "Whose is that?" She looked at it the way you look at your own kitchen when a stranger asks where something is. "That must be from earlier." I asked her to find Marguerite. She came down still holding a stack of towels, pleased to see me. She is always pleased to see me. I asked her to tell the administrator about my husband. Marguerite smiled. "Oh, she's here every week, never misses." I said, "About my husband." "That's right, love." I said his name, and Marguerite, who brought that man his tablets twice a day for 6 years, who told me in March that he was still in there. Marguerite said, "Who?" It was more like a lamp. I drove home and stood in my own hall and called his name. Not loudly, the way you do when you come in and the car is on the drive. The house did what my house has always done. The boiler, the clock in the front room. I have stood in that hall every evening for 6 years, and it has always sounded exactly like this, and I never noticed, because I have never once been able to tell the difference. The cup is my mother's. I know that because I was told it. The house is very quiet. Not the quiet of somebody having left, the other kind. I sit here most days, and I do the crossword. In pen. I don't know when I started doing that. There is a chair on the other side of this room. It has been there the whole time you and I have been talking. I have not looked at it once. That is a decision, not an oversight. Because a few minutes ago, while I was telling you about Marguerite, the cushion went down. I'm not going to turn around. You understand why. I did not turn around. I did not call anyone. I sat where I was, with both hands around a cold cup, and let you be the one who saw it. Tell me what you saw. Tell me you saw me.